Today on Book Talk with Bookish Erika, I am interviewing author M. Bartlett. M. Bartlett, thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's an awesome opportunity.
I am really excited to discuss your book. This is your debut novel, The Way of the Nameless. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, absolutely. It is a high fantasy novel. It's the first in the series. It takes place in a world where magic is oppressed. Magic was gifted to certain individuals a long, long time ago by the gods. They were God blessed, if you know, I feel like that's kind of the best way to put it. They were God blessed, and others weren't. So they kind of became afraid of those who had magical abilities. Therefore, they were ousted from society. There were multiple battles and wars and raids that pushed them either out of society completely or into hiding. And where we are in present day in the story, people who have magical abilities are again forced to hide themselves. They're forced to hide who they truly are just to be able to blend in. So they are the outcasts of society, but if they hide themselves well enough, they can still fit in. Two of our four main characters, Callan and Ash, are in what I call the Phenomicron. It is a magical entertainment troupe where they can utilize their abilities as showmanship, and within the arena confines, they're allowed to use that magic. It's kind of like they're put on display, though. So people who view magic as taboo and freaky, they go and see them do performances. Callan was a an orphan who was abandoned at the Phenomenon. He doesn't have any magical abilities to speak of. He was trained to be an archer, to be a performer, and his best friend, Ash, is a pyre fairy. So she has these beautiful wings that were unfortunately shredded during one of the raids a long, long time ago. Poor baby. They're so beautiful though. And she
Oh,
has fire abilities. So she uses her flames and he uses his archery to do performances. But they are about to be done with their contract with the Phenomicron and they're trying to decide what to do next. Ash wants to see the world. Callan wants to become a white knight, which is a part of a mercenaries guild. He wants to travel the world and help people and find purpose, something that he's always felt like he's lacked. And he gets to meet the renowned Captain Blackwell, the captain of all the White Knights. And Captain Blackwell sends him on this quest to find information about a rumored weapon that could be the downfall of society itself. And on this journey, they meet a shadowy thief who is trying to find out if her best friend is in danger. And they meet this half cloud giant, which is a guy who has marbled stone skin and these huge, like angelic wings, who feels this pull, this tug that has brought him, wouldn't you know it, to this group. And as the reader, you're kind of left to decide whether this is all fate, whether this was all coincidence, and how the trials and tribulations play out throughout the story.
oh my goodness. This is such a cool sounding book, and it's like epic fantasy, high fantasy,
Yeah.
and I like how involved it sounds. There's a lot of different storylines, a lot of different characters. It seems like you've really thought through the backstories, the world that they live in, and I love seeing that in a fantasy novel. I love when it's complex and there's just so much for me to follow. So I'm really
Oh
excited.
yeah. Yeah, I really something that I've always been a fantasy person, and I know for some people it's really hard to get into, I don't know, more involved fantasies with extremely rich world building like the Stormlight Archives or the Wheel of Time. And then you have your other fantasies, which I think in today's world, fantasy is a lot more approachable. It's a lot more easy to take in. I guess that's kind of the best way to put it. And that's something I really wanted to put in this book. I kind of think of it as the show Carnival Row meets D&D or Dungeons and Dragons. So it's easily digestible but still fun and mystical in its
I love that. I think that's the perfect matchup. And that's what I like in books. So I'm really excited for The Way of the Nameless.
own way. Yay!
Um, so what tropes can we find in the novel?
The tropes that I had to like narrow down a few. I feel like the biggest one is found family. A lot of early readers, that's like the first thing that they put down. Is found family, prophesized destinies, We have some romantic subplots. It's not a romantasy, but there are some romantic subplots throughout the story. There's fated mates in there as well. I have a lot of influences from different folklore and cultures. I have a lot of creatures from legends like fairies and dragons, but with a little bit of a twist. And then I have creatures and beasts that I've made on my own as well. I feel like a big element of it is trauma and loss and oppression and things that it's fun to have fairies and dragons because that is fantasy and it makes you feel cozy, but it's also nice to feel seen while reading some of these books that are also an escape from reality. I know reality is very harsh, but having tropes like found family, oppression, things like that, I feel like are really a big part of the way of the Nameless in the sense that reading it, you can feel a part of this group. You can feel like you would fit in the way of the Nameless.
I think found family is super, super popular right now. And I love to see it in books because I think people want to feel that connection. And like you were saying, the world is just so difficult now. I think that it's so nice. I think everybody is looking for that found family, not only in real life, but also in the books that they read. And so
Absolutely.
I like, yeah, I like that there's a lot that readers can relate to. And there are some difficult topics like oppression and things that the book deals with. Um, but I think it's going to be a really good journey to see how that plays out throughout the series. So I'm really excited for that.
Absolutely.
Do you like to read the same tropes that you write?
Yes and no. Mostly yes. I really wanted to implement all the tropes I love very dearly in this book, found family being one of them. I'm a big fan of found family. I'm a really big fan of having different influences from different cultures and backgrounds. I think that that's so fun to implement into a fantasy story. To again, it's all about making you feel connected to something that is outside of reality. It makes you go, oh, I can be a superhero too, or oh, I can be this crazy magic wielder too. It makes you feel connected. So those are things that I really love. I'm a big fantasy reader. I'm reading I am book two in Stormlight Archives. I'm reading Words of Radiance now. I'm reading One Dark Window by Rachel Gilling. And I'm currently reading The Queen's Card by Aaron Archer, which is another indie author. And those fantasy tropes that are in all three of those I'm so drawn to it. But at the same time, I love horror books. I love science fiction. I love romance. And some of those things I cannot picture myself writing. I might dabble one day, but those are things that feel so far fetched to me. And I respect those writers so very much because those some of the tropes in those genres are so hard to get across sometimes. So I'm very interested by those, but they are feel like they're so difficult to write. So much respect for those authors.
Definitely. And I don't think everyone realizes that writing different genres does require a different skill set. Not every book has the same pacing. It doesn't have the same character development. There's a lot of differences depending on what genre you're writing in. And so I'm really impressed when writers can cross different genres. And it used to be that authors really didn't do that. They kind of stuck to one lane. Um, and that was what they did, and they were good at that. And so I think it would be cool to see some different genres, but I understand it's very different. And, I think it would take a lot of work to be able to do that. Like, it's kind of the same. I love sci fi, and I don't think I could ever come up with a complex story. I think it would be probably the worst thing ever written if I tried to write something sci-fi, but I love to read them because they're just so interesting and they're just fascinating to me.
Absolutely. I feel like a big one, people, whenever I tell people that I wrote a fantasy book, they go, oh, you made like a whole world. I'm like, yeah, and that feels so easy to me and so second nature. But whenever I think about like a horror novel, I'm a big Stephen King fan, huge Stephen King girly. I love Clive Barker is another one of my favorite authors. I love feeling terrified to read the next page. And, I tried to implement some elements of horror in my book. That way I could kind of get a feel for it. But it's it's so captivating. And even if it's set in our world, that's a whole, like you said, it's a whole different skill set that people don't think about. Yes, fantasy is difficult in some aspects, but other aspects it isn't. It just kind of depends, I guess, on the author themselves and what they do and enjoy. Like I'm a big Dungeons and Dragons fan. I create worlds and characters all the time. So, me putting them into some crazy fantastical world is easy, whereas me writing something that can scare someone down to their bones is a whole different thing.
It's definitely a lot different. And I think obviously both types of writing have their challenges, like you said, but sometimes the real world is more difficult because you do have all the constraints of our real world. And you have to stick by our laws or customs or, just the races and creatures that we have. But in
Yes.
fantasy, it is difficult because it's endless. The possibilities are endless with what you do, and you have to kind of narrow it down and, choose which parts of the fantasy creations that you want. And that's its own struggle. But I think, both are just very challenging to do. So, but I love that you mentioned D&D because I'm a D&D fan and I mention it a lot in the like interviews that I do. And I always say authors should play D&D because
Yes.
I think it's very, very helpful, especially if you write fantasy. Maybe not some
Mm.
other genres. I think it would still be helpful for character development and things, but
Oh yeah.
D&D I think is super, super helpful for anyone who likes fantasy.
Yeah, something that I do plan on talking about a little bit more eventually is I use character sheets to make my characters. I have four main POVs in this book. It's Callan, Ash, Ori, and Asvin. But there are so many characters in the Way of the Nameless, and my friends are all big D&D nerds, so they help me get through this. I was like, I want little implements of things that I wouldn't have necessarily thought about in a character. So I made a huge character sheet. I'm like, okay, if you're this character, how do you feel about this? Like I would have 30 random weird questions to ask them. Like if they tap their fingers on a counter, would it would they use their nails or the pads of their fingers? Just strange, weird questions just to make that character so individually unique. So I'm very grateful to my friends for actually helping me with that a little bit. But there's actual real implements of D&D in this book, and I agree. I think all authors should use it for character development, for world building, even in sci-fi. It's a really awesome tool.
It is, it definitely is. The tapping the fingers on like a counter is a fascinating question. And immediately as you said that, I was like, you know what? That actually is a really good question. And it's so unique, but it does say a lot about somebody.
Yep.
And that's so cool. Oh my gosh. I would, at some point, I would love to hear more of the questions or different things that you add because I think that's a really, really cool tool. And
Oh
it
yeah.
seems like you're thinking on such a small level with your characters, but I think that's really going to bring them to life that much more, especially in a story with multiple points of view.
Yes. For sure. Yeah, I definitely it's one of those it's very intricate little details. I know there's a big thing in author community where it's like, what are the things I Googled today? It's with character development, I like those tiny little hints of something that I wouldn't have initially thought of. Like Callan, he is an artist deep down. He loves to sketch, he loves to draw, and things of that nature are mentioned, but it's not something that's super highlighted, but it's a part of him inevitably. And I'm sure more things will come up as I write more about Callan, but his bow for his bow and arrow have tiny little like engravings in it. It's something that I know as the person who knows him the most, but it's super intriguing to me to have those tiny little, like, are they a night owl or a morning person? What is it about them that changes them oh so slightly? Um, and this is a little bit of a backpedal, but you mentioned like with world building and stuff. I have a lot of Victorian vibes throughout the Way of the Nameless.
Cool.
And while it's not in the real world, it's not set in our world, I tried to utilize the Victorian history to add in specific inventions in my world to have some kind of baseline. And I'll never forget the day that I had to Google. when were refrigerators invented?
I
And I
have
was
no
like,
idea.
yeah, it was like, I think I read that it was like the late 1800s. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of Victorian, so we're getting there. And you'll have to read to find out why I needed to know when refrigerators were made,
I'm actually really interested. That's such a funny question that I did not expect for your story. So that's
right?
cool. Yeah. I'm a history nerd. I have a history degree, and so I love hearing what time periods authors like draw inspiration from or what time periods they research, just because that's something that I'm really interested in. So I'm excited to see what
Oh yeah.
Victorian-esque aspects you have. Um, so which aspect or character from your book do you most identify with?
Um, and since I mentioned like having the character sheets that I use for each character, there are so many of them that have inspiration from my loved ones and friends and family, little sprinkles of them, but each character also has a small part of me as well. Ori is one of the characters I identify with the most just through some of the struggles she went through as a young person. And all of my characters are kind of in their mid 20s to 30s. It's this very it's this very integral moment in time where you're trying to figure out who you are. You're trying to piece together all these pieces of your past that you don't know how much of them truly make up your story and whether or not you're going to continue to follow that line or pave your own path. And that's happening to all of the characters, whether it be through acts of love, whether it be through finding out where you're from or your history, which is a big aspect in the way of the nameless. They're the nameless. Their histories have been trampled upon because they were again ousted from society. They weren't allowed to know their family histories or unlock access or to be able to access the knowledge of their magical ancestry or lack thereof. So there's a lot of people running around in these realms who have no idea who they are. They are just here and trying to live life and, not run into the wrong people. And you've got this young group of people in this party who are almost, they're all lost in some form or fashion. That's a really big aspect that I attach myself to because to feel lost is so deep and there's so many different elements that go into that feeling, whether you feel lost in a relationship or lost in what you're doing with your life. Isn't that the big question? Whether you feel lost in, what am I going to do from one day to the next? There's a lot of layers to that, and it's a really big aspect that I relate to, and that you can see that in all the characters in some form or fashion.
I love that. And I think that's such a unique answer to that question. And I think a lot of people do feel lost in different aspects, like you said. And so I think that's going to be something that's really interesting for readers to explore as they're reading your book. Because life is difficult. And I personally feel a lot
Ain't
of
that the truth?
loss. It is so true, unfortunately. But I've always really struggled with like what am I doing with my life, what's next, and I'm a planner and life does not go according to plans and I
Nope.
hate that and it drives me crazy. But
I'm the
as I
same
get
way.
older, it's so difficult. But as I'm getting older, I'm learning to be more go with the flow. I'm not great at it. Um, but I think that is definitely an aspect that I'll relate to when I read your book because it's something that I struggle with. But I'm excited to experience it through your characters.
Absolutely. It's a big relatability point to be able to not only accept that you don't know what you're doing next or what have you. I know for Callan, he has these passions to be a white knight. He really wants to be successful in this, but he has no foundation as to why. He has nothing to go off of. He's been playing, the handsome archer in the show this whole time, and he's like, what do I do now? I guess I'm going to do this. So it's just interesting to see how they develop through that. But that relatability is a really big aspect that I have poured into this for sure.
I really like that. I like that a lot. So, since October 1st, you have been making a post a day where you highlight and discuss different inspiration for your characters and themes and everything about related to your book. So where did you get that idea from? I think it's really cool.
From the top of the dome. I really, I didn't see it anywhere else. I tried to think about within bookish community, what were things that I really was drawn to. I love seeing where people get their inspirations from. For example, I'm a big Shakespeare fan. I'm a big history fan. I really love diving into different cultures and folklore and learning new things. So I find it so interesting whenever I read a book and it goes, oh, well, this was from the Green Knight. That this is from an Arthurian legend. I go, oh, that's so cool. I love that. And it just makes me love the book so much more. So I was like, what's something that I can do to hype up the Way of the Nameless and also give little tidbits about the book, about myself, about what it was like to write this book. I believe as of recording this, we are on day 13, day 14,
Mhm.
and there are so many more things I have to get through.
Yeah.
But I've shared some inspirations about authors and books, about TV shows, about friends and family, all kinds of different things, inspirations for specific characters. I know I've posted almost all four POVs for inspirations of characters, and it's just been really fun to see early readers react and go, oh, I felt that, or I had a feeling that this was involved in your story making somehow. So that was just something I really felt like would appeal to people who are into books, people who are not into books. They'd go, oh, well, it'd be really cool to check out what my friend Maddie is writing. And, I don't know anything about books, but let's dive into this. I feel like it was an opening for anyone who happened to see those posts to be intrigued by what I was talking about and be like, oh, I could check out that book.
I love that. And I've watched every single one. And I'm excited for the ones to come. But I love just how much inspiration you do have for your book. And like you said, you've highlighted different myths or legends and movies, other characters, like pretty much anything that people can relate to, you've highlighted. And I love seeing just how much thought and work and effort went into your book because you really have thought through all of your characters, all of the world, how the magic is set up, all of that. And it's really cool to see. And it just makes me even more excited to read your book.
Yeah, it's been a long process. I've been As of this month, it has been 2 years since I started. I took a year to plot out the characters in the world, and then I took a year with actually writing and editing and proofreading. I've read this book maybe 15 times. Um, I I've only been a year on social media as well, so it's been 2 long years and 2 very happy years. I've enjoyed doing this so much, and I'm excited. I'm working on book 2 right now. So there will be updates in progress for that. And I even have a top secret project that I'm working on with a fellow author of mine, R.W.
Ooh.
Harrison. And I'm really excited about that too. It's in the fantasy realm as well, but writing and creating these worlds is such a gift to have. And it makes me so happy that I have not only accomplished this, but I get to share it. I was telling my husband the other day, if one person reads this book and is happy by it or feels related to a character, that's enough for me, truly.
You just seem like such a wonderful person. And I love that your enthusiasm is very clear and is coming through. And 2 years is a long time to work on any project. And I'm really happy to hear that you're still very excited about it. You seem very passionate about it, and it's definitely coming through as we're chatting. And so I'm really excited because it can be difficult to work on something for 2 years and then you don't know how it's going to be received. And it's scary to put it out there, but I'm really excited to hear that you are excited about what you've already accomplished and you have more things to come. So that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's absolutely terrifying. Whenever I first sent it out to early readers, I was like, there's no way. There's no way anybody's gonna like this. And the reviews that I've gotten so far are amazing. They loved characters that I didn't anticipate them falling in love with. It's just it's so there's not even a word for it. It just makes me so unconditionally happy that someone related to something, even if it was not what I anticipated, or if it was, one line or one character. It's been awesome to see. I was taken aback when I read a review that said they thought it reminded them of Percy Jackson meets The Fellowship of the Ring. And I was like,
Ooh,
what? It blew my mind because those are two books that I grew up with. Those are two movies that I grew up with. It just, like I said, there's no words to describe how happy that made me. Terrifying, scary, happy, flabbergasted all at once.
that's an amazing thing. And two very loved series that they're comparing your book to. And so that probably felt really, really good. That's cool.
It
I'm glad
did.
you're getting such good response from all the ARC readers, and I'm happy to hear that. How did it feel when you first held a copy of your book in your hands?
I was it's funny that you asked this question. I was thinking about doing the thing where I got the box and I opened it on camera so that people could see it. And whenever I got the box, I kind of just it was just me in the house. There's nobody else. I was looking at the box and I was like, this is weird. This doesn't feel real. This almost doesn't even feel right. I know what's in this box. I opened it up and I remember almost feeling like shaky. It didn't feel real. I was like, there's no way. Uh, Whenever I picked it up, because I brought a copy with me, it just blew my mind that my name was on it. Of all the things, it wasn't the beautiful artwork, it wasn't the things that are in or on the book. It was the fact that my name was on it. That is
Yeah,
something that I've always been very big about in life and in all of my passions is that I want to be able to claim that I did that. So seeing my name on it and it was just felt very accomplished. So it was a level of happiness that I cannot even begin to describe.
I love to hear that. And I'm glad that you really do feel accomplished because writing a book is not easy.
No,
And
it is not.
it's so difficult. And like you said, you've been working on it for 2 years. That's a long time. And I can't even imagine the number of hours that you've put in over those 2 years. And so I'm just so happy that it felt like surreal for you when you
Very
finally got a hold of
surreal.
book.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very surreal. It was like, oh, this was the amalgamation of all this work. And for me, I'm a very hobby enthusiast. I love to read. I play music. I do puzzles. I color. I paint. I do all these things. This is the one thing I have made a complete commitment to without even trying. It's something that I wake up and I think about, or I'm driving in the car and I'm like, oh, time to do a voice recording for an idea I had. I mean, it's endless in the way of how much I love it. Truly, truly.
I love to hear that. Oh, I'm really excited for you. I can't wait. Remind me when the book is published.
Book is published on October the 22nd of this year, and it'll be available on Amazon as of right now. And I believe pre-orders are up for Kindle as we speak. So if you're an e-reader, Kindle reader, pre-orders are available for that now.
Perfect. Will it be in Kindle Unlimited or just for purchasing the Kindle?
Upon its release, it will be available in Kindle Unlimited right off the bat. So all Kindle Unlimited readers, definitely give it a shot.
Okay, perfect. I do like to ask because I know a lot of listeners and readers, they prefer the Kindle Unlimited route. But I don't have Kindle Unlimited. So if you're like me and you're listening and you want to check out The Way of the Nameless, you can pre-order or wait until the 22nd and then get the paperback or ebook at that point.
Yes. I will eventually, I'm looking at doing some hardcover editions in the future. I am working on potential audiobook. So, it kind of depends on how much this takes off, and there'll be an audiobook soon to follow. But yeah, as of right now, paperback and ebook is what it's going to be available on come October 22nd.
Yay! Oh, I'm really excited. I am also going to keep an eye out for the audiobook because I love listening to audiobooks. So that would be
Me too.
really cool. I know it's a lot that goes into it, but thank you so much for your time. This was so much fun. Anyone listening, please check out The Way of the Nameless by M. M. Bartlett.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity again.